Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race. We are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 351 of the Running for Real podcast. And today, I think maybe for the first time, although maybe we've done this somewhere along the line, we are going to have a rerun of a previous episode. We're going to reshare with you, and you're about to hear it, a conversation that I had with Courtney Dauwalter in 2021. And the reason we are sharing this episode is because we felt it was quite relevant to the reason I don't have a new and updated episode for you today. As you listen to this, if you are listening to it on the day it comes out, I am in Utah. I am preparing to run my first 50-mile race. And no, I haven't done a 50K either. In Bryce Canyon, this was the race I was meant to be doing a year ago, although I was going to do the 50K. But a stomach flu a few days before took me out. And vomiting for 24 hours is not exactly how you prep for an ultra. So here I am 1 year later going to do this. And I wanted to make sure I was focused on that. I also, as many of you know, unexpectedly lost a close friend of mine a few weeks ago, and I've been grieving a lot, and I really haven't had the extroversion to be able to record an episode. I feel like I'm almost there, but I just haven't had the energy to be able to do that. And so I'm hoping I can have a fresh episode for you coming. But today, this conversation was a wonderful one. It was a really powerful one. And of course, she is an amazing person to listen to and learn from, especially for someone like me going into my first ultra. So without any further ado, let's go re-listen to this episode with Courtney Dauwalter. Thank you to AG1 from Athletic Greens for sponsoring the Running for Real podcast and for supporting me with the work that I'm doing. They recently they funded the Red S recovery resource that I created, which I really appreciated, and they just care about the community. So I wanted to start by highlighting that. But what is AG1? Well, AG1 allows you to take control of your health, give your body what it truly needs. And now there's one serving of AG1 delivers this high impact blend of 9 health products, multivitamin, minerals, probiotics, adaptogens, and more that is designed to support your gut health, support recovery, energy boost, and more. So everything we need as runners. As a friend of mine, you can get a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 plus K2, another critical component we need as runners, as well as from keeping us healthy from getting sicknesses. Plus, you're going to get 5 free travel packs with your order. So when you are traveling to races, you can have those with you. I do not miss days of Athletic Greens. And if I do, I notice it and I miss it and I crave it when I get home. So I have so easily slipped this into my routine. It is the one habit that I am actually able to keep. And I know that it's taking care of my gut health, my immunity, my energy, and my recovery. Those are all things we as runners need. It's got 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients in one serving. And it tastes really good. It's almost got like a pineapple-y flavor to it. My kids love it, and if a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old love it, that is saying something. So you can go to athleticgreens.com/Tina. That's athleticgreens.com/Tina to get that special offer as a friend of mine. Go check out AG1. You will see that the hype is for real. The reasons are true, and you're going to love it. I know I do. Courtney, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for joining me. We have a lot to discuss, and I'm sure you're going to inspire so many of my audience members just by, hearing your story alone. So thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. And, I don't even know where to begin with you because you have a lot of these huge accomplishments, breaking down barriers for women, ultra runners, and like essentially humankind. So there's so many things I could talk about, but I want to go back first to Sunday, October 15th. You won the Moab 240-mile endurance run outright by more than 10 hours, which is just ridiculous. But at the time, there's some things I want to talk about specifically with that. But did you realize at the time that you were that far ahead, 10 hours?
No, I mean, I had just been like battling my battle, and trying to cover the distance. And the whole time it was never trying to think about the actual finish line or what that would mean to finish, but just each section, each mile, just one foot in front of the other. Because for it was actually 238 miles. You can't think of the finish line. It's so far off, so.
And is it a case with ultras that you don't even, let's say you are 5 miles from the finish, you never really know what's going to happen, which we will talk about in one of your other races. You never really know what's going to happen. So can you never really get to the point where you think I've got it in the bag?
I never do. The few times that maybe that's crossed my mind during races, something has gone wrong at the end. And so now it's like, try not to jinx myself, and just stay in the moment, stay present, deal with this mile right here, right now. But at Moab, when you have like a mile left and you hit this road section. So you're finally off of trails and then it's like, okay, 1 mile of road running is all I have to do to get to the finish. And then it was like, oh my gosh, we're going to make it there. And it was still daylight and my friends were at the finish line and some family. So then it was really exciting.
Yeah. And just I can't even imagine how good that must feel after, 237 miles to know that you have 1 mile left and to have made it all that way. I mean, the exhilaration you must feel is just, I just can't even imagine it. Although maybe you're just so tired at that point that you don't even have any joy left to give, essentially, because you've got nothing left, in any kind of capacity. Is that?
Yeah, I was, there was a cooler of beer waiting for me at the finish line. So
is that what you've been dreaming about?
That got me through like the last day.
Last day. Even hearing you say that, most of us are like, oh, that last 3 miles dragged on. I was thinking about water, and then there's you saying the last day. You're thinking about that. It's just so impressive. And in addition to that, you ran a new American record for 24 hours at the Riverbank one-day race. And you ran, again, 155 miles in 24 hours, which, just incredible stuff here. And, one thing that you've kind of talked about a lot is that you don't care, if it's a man or a woman in front of you. Do you think that attitude essentially helps to push you forward as you're not getting caught in like the minor details of whether it's a man or a woman, whether it's a competitor or not, like someone like you're just kind of focusing on being out there doing your best? Do you think that does make a difference in how successful you've been?
I think it's got to have a part in it. I think by just trying to reel in the next person, whoever that is, it holds me accountable and it makes me stay efficient through each of the sections and not let up on the gas just because I feel like I can for a little bit, like keeping that forward motion happening the whole time and competing against anyone out there makes me compete against myself the strongest, I think.
So is there any part of you when you pass another man that kind of is like, yes, or have you managed to just kind of completely push that out of your head?
Yeah, that's mostly on the back burner, and it's just like piece by piece. These ultras are really humbling. You can pass someone by and be feeling so true. Great, and then a few miles later, you're down in the like just lowest point, and you get passed back.
Okay.
So
yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's not kind of a done deal once you pass someone, and it's not like, shorter races where it's like you got to pass someone and make it hurt, make them feel like you're done. Like, essentially, like you said, with ultras, that kind of attitude can come back to bite you. And I'm sure that kind of aggressive mood can come back and bite you if you do make a bold move where you do want to kind of show someone how strong you are. That's a good chance that you're going to, push yourself too far, too fast. So then how did you get yourself to that point? Was it something like innate in you? You've always been kind of just a competitor and, like you said, being out there in the moment? Or what would you say to people who are struggling with maybe overthinking things, or just kind of getting lost in thinking about how much they have left or what they have to come? What would you say?
Yeah, I think I have been like this my whole life. I grew up with two brothers, and having two brothers, you compete for everything, even like dinner was a competition. So it's just been kind of ingrained in me to compete and make games out of everything. So that's been an entire life journey for me. But I would say the biggest piece in this ultra running stuff has been just staying present and enjoying each of those moments, whatever they are, laughing when it's all going wrong and like, are you kidding? This is happening right now, or smiling and taking it all in during those moments when you're flying high and feeling really good.
And that reminded me when you just said that about Devin Yanko, I've had on the show before, and she talked about yelling plot twist and kind of laughing to herself when something went wrong. So very, very similar kind of mindset there of just kind of, like you said, rather than being like, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened to me. Like, this is so wrong. This is not fair. You kind of just take it as like, well, here we go. Let's see what happens. So any advice for, if someone is getting caught up in that moment, what can they say to themselves to bring themselves back to the present? Is it kind of, pay attention to something that's around you, like, look for a tree and that can remind you? Anything you would suggest to someone who does find it really hard to bring themselves back to the present?
Yeah, I think it's kind of individual, but finding those little mind tricks you can play with yourself, and maybe it's something someone has said to you before that you can just repeat, or even like a song lyric, or putting in music depending on the race and if that's allowed or not, or having a snack, just something to like ground yourself in that moment and stop thinking through all of those details. 'Cause you can do math all day in your head, and run paces and try and estimate times. But especially in these longer races, one, that's really tricky math. And two, you'll drive yourself crazy looking at numbers like that.
Well, this is actually the perfect segue to talk about, now in my community, we call it No Watch Me, which is where you do not, I give people I don't want to say permission, but I say it's okay to be wearing a Garmin, a GPS watch, just not looking at the pace during. You can press stop, no idea of pace during. Now I'm told that you run, whatever you call it, run by feel. We call it No Watch Me, for all of your runs. And how did you reach that conclusion that that was the best way for you to run, especially in these kind of races, rather than kind of going with, I guess, giving into this pressure of feeling like you need to kind of pay attention to your watch and use it to your advantage?
I grew up running cross country and track, and competed through high school, and then skied Nordic skiing in college, and had excellent coaches. And so they always did the thinking, and the figuring out of paces, and all I had to do was execute. And so I think just by having those really strong, knowledgeable and passionate coaches through my years growing up, I've kind of like internalized just what it feels like, and know when it hurts really bad and when I can push it a little bit more, versus like when it hurts really bad and I should step it back a little bit. And I just enjoy running. Like I don't want to be crunching the numbers the whole time. And I don't want to be looking at my watch every mile to see my split. It doesn't matter to me. I think, there's a lot more joy in it for me in just getting out and going by feel. And if the day feels really good, then I keep going and maybe go further than I intended. if it feels awful, then I'll just stop and walk it in, like that was that day. Tomorrow's a new one. So reset no matter what just happened out there.
So when you're in these runs that you where you were just saying there about, if you feel good, you may go longer than you expect. I mean, is it a case of you are just literally on essentially a runner's high? You are feeling great. Or do you kind of still have those moments even on your good days where you're like, okay, I think I've done enough. I think I'm going to stop at the next mile or whatever. And then you get to that mile and you're like, actually, I think I can keep going. Like we often do when we're, when we think to ourselves, I have 20 miles to do. When you're at mile 5, that might seem like, or let's say you had 20 to 22 miles to do and you're at mile 5, you're like, oh, I'm definitely just doing 20 because I'm not feeling great. But then you get to like 19 and a half and you're like, actually, I'm okay. Like, is it a kind of a case of that, or are you just generally feeling good and just loving every second of it?
No, it's not a permanent runner's high. It's more like the second one, the second version. And I live in Colorado. I'm really lucky to be where I am. And I'll leave my house and I won't necessarily know where I'm going. I might have an idea of my route for the day, but then my feet usually just kind of take me, or if I'm starting out on a road loop that I have, I might be feeling the trails a little bit more, and end up going on to some trail networks. And then it is kind of, how am I feeling? Should I tack on a couple extra miles? Like, should I go do that extra loop that I love doing, or was that enough for today? Mm-hmm. And just assessing it as it's happening and letting the day unfold as it does.
And do you do that with kind of turning around as well? Like, let's say you were going to do a loop and, you were at a point where you could do an add-on loop and you say to yourself, well, I'm not feeling that great right now. I'm going to skip that loop. But then a mile later, you're like, actually, I'm feeling okay. I'm going to add on this different loop. Is it kind of, you're still going back and forth even within those runs?
Yeah, but it never feels like back and forth dialogue. It's just kind of like an assessment and then a turn, okay. Like every fork in the road, just making a choice.
Okay.
And then not beating myself up about those low days where I turned around early or I ended up doing only 3 miles when I thought I was going to do 8, just like being okay with whatever happened that day and knowing that tomorrow's another day and my legs and my body will let me know if that's going to be a big day or a little day.
Yeah, no, that's a great attitude. And I'm just trying to pick this apart a little bit just to kind of help listeners to see how they can apply it to their own training, because it can be tough to, to get to that point. But also, for people listening to think that for you're just kind of running along all day, every day, like, oh, this is so great. I love running, like every second of every run, when it's just not the case. You've said, and you've made it very clear that you love to run, but you still have many moments. And like you said, you might go out one day and just make it 3 miles, which, 3 miles when you can run 240 is nothing, but you're obviously being smart with listening. And for someone listening who's wondering about the pacing aspect of this, like, ultras are, known for being hard to pace. So many ultra runners go out too fast. So for someone who does struggle with kind of pacing themselves, what would your advice be for how to kind of read that clock or read that internal dial to know whether you are going too fast, whether you are pushing over that line?
Yeah, I think it comes a lot in the training runs leading up to those ultras and finding your cruise control speed. What's the speed that you can go that feels like one of those speeds where you say, I could do this all day on your good days, Mm-hmm. And that's just a feel thing. And for me, that's not a watch thing or a time thing. It also depends a lot on the course and what it throws at you. So just kind of judging, like, this uphill section, I'm going to hike because running it feels like I'm exerting myself a whole lot and I've got a long ways to go. Or this downhill section, I'm going to let my legs go a little bit because it feels good. It's harder to resist the speed than to just like let them fly for a bit. And then I'll like temper that a little bit more once I get to the flats.
Oh, friends, I cannot believe we are here. We are just a few months away from becoming a sustainable runner, coming out into the world. It is available on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, on Bookshop, on Waterstones, at Target, all kinds of places. And if you are a runner, if you care about the planet that you run on, you can use running to change the world for the better. And we have worked really hard. Zoe Rome and I wrote this book together. It's a practical guide for runners of all abilities and backgrounds who want to take meaningful action to protect our planet through your love of sport. We weave together personal stories, research, expert input, and we illustrate how every runner can better support your own endurance journey and how you can use those lessons with environmental action. And when I say this, I don't want you to think this is going to be us yelling at you, telling you to never fly again. We make this really sustainable, just in terms of your own running, in terms of being connected to your community, in terms of planet. This is not going to be a lecturing type book. It's just giving you lots of suggestions. We worked really hard to make it real, to make it just relatable to average people, because I know there's so much out there, particularly in the climate space, that makes us want to bury our heads in the sand, right? It makes us feel like we're not good enough, that we're part of the problem. This book is going to make you feel like part of the solution. And I've also created other goodies, giveaways that I will be mentioning in the coming weeks. But if you can go ahead and pre-order the book, as I said, you can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Bookshop, Waterstones, Target. And you can also request it within your local running store. Becoming a Sustainable Runner, written by myself and Zoe Rome. I would really love if you would check it out. We have an amazing quote come in from Malcolm Gladwell, which was, "I've been waiting a long time for a book that puts running in the broader context of our bodies, our minds, and our planet. Becoming a Sustainable Runner is that book." I'm so grateful for that, and all the others who have given us quotes. So go check it out, becomingaSustainableRunner.com. So your speed may be kind of varying quite a lot within runs. Like you said, you will slow down a lot to go up a hill, but keeping that effort the same. And then on a downhill, you may be speeding up. Whereas people often think that they should be running kind of one consistent pace. You're saying that it's not necessarily a good thing to be doing that. Even if you're not looking at your watch, but looking at it afterwards, it doesn't matter if it's kind of up and down with your paces, as long as you're keeping that same level of intensity, the whole way. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think so. And I'm no expert on any of it, but just figuring it out along the way, that's what's working for me.
Okay, great. All right. So I want to talk about the Run Rabbit Run 100, which, I think you knew I was going to bring this up. It was a second win. The part that everyone wants to hear about, running the final 12 miles in total blindness, stumbling your way down a single technical track, falling over, finishing with a bleeding gash on your head. Tell us about what happened there, and just explain for the listeners who might not know.
Yeah. So it's a 100-mile race in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. So mountains and beautiful fall scenery. But the last 12 miles hit, and I was pushing pretty hard at that point, and nutrition wasn't going in very well, but I was going for it. I wanted to hit a new time for myself. So
you were aware of this, like you knew you were kind of redlining at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't redlining so much as just like not letting myself fall off my pace as much as it often happens at the end of 100-miler.
Okay.
So just trying to keep a steady run go.
Okay.
And my vision started kind of feeling blurry on the sides, and it was still nighttime, so I thought it was my headlamp. Maybe the batteries were dying, or it was a little bit chilly. So I wear contacts, and I thought maybe those were freezing, or just the morning mist. Maybe, I didn't know, but it progressed where it blurred over my entire vision. And by the time the sun had risen, it had turned pure white. I couldn't see anything in front of my face. My hand in front of my face, I couldn't see it. But I could see a tiny little bit in front of my feet. So I just stared straight down at my feet. But on trails like that, the rocks and roots are coming at you pretty quickly, where looking right in front of your toes isn't going to help you. So I was like Superman diving all over the trail. Every rock was launching me. One of the times I tripped, I banged my head on a rock and felt liquid going down my face. But when I touched my face and looked at my hand, I couldn't see that it was blood or not, you know? So I'm like, maybe it's okay.
Any guesses how many times you think you fell in that 12 miles, roughly?
Oh my gosh, no guesses. I mean, it was multiple times per mile.
Wow. Like, so how was that not like scary for you? You know, not being able to see your hand in front of your face. Like, was there any part of you that was like panicking, like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? Or were you just, I'm just trying to imagine here for like, you know, how your kind of internal, like warning, like something is wrong here wasn't freaking you out.
Yeah. I think for me, it was just a realization of this is the situation. This is what you've been dealt with right now. Your only solution is to keep moving. I was on single track in the middle of the mountains. You know, I didn't have a bailout option. So
do you think it would have been different had you had an option to kind of, if someone would have been, you know, let's say there was a fueling station, like, do you think there would have been a temptation there?
They maybe would have yanked me.
Okay.
Like taken me out of it. But okay. I think I would have tried to keep going. Okay. And I did make it to an aid station with 6 miles to go. But at that point, we were basically at the top of the ski resort. So all we had to do was do a service road down. So the single track was done then. And they sent a volunteer with me to just like orally guide me.
So did you told them that you couldn't see?
Yeah. Well, okay. And I rolled into that aid station looking like a mess, like blood on my face, you know. I'm like, my eyes had like just a white kind of cloud over the whole front of them. So I think they could tell something was out of place. And then I described to them, and one of the volunteers jumped in right away and was like, I'm going to run down next to you for this section, and I'll just describe the trail to you, because on the service road, it's wider, so there's more room for error. But it's also, if you go off of an edge, you're going to be like head over heels down a black diamond ski run, you know, so not ideal.
Yeah. And so there was no point in that 12 miles that you considered dropping out?
No.
It's just, I can't imagine being, you know, that just shows how like tough you are, how like committed you are. And so,
or that there's like some serious screws loose.
Well, whichever one it is, I think it's worth it for, you know, seeing what you've been able to do here. And, you know, so you finished the race, first female, or first win, second win overall, but, you won the race. Vision came back within 5 hours. Although from what I've read, you actually still don't know what the cause was. So I was wondering, did you ever find out what it was, or was it kind of you wanted to just move on and forget about that?
Yeah, I mean, I went to the hospital when I finished because they wanted to check my head and make sure that was all good. And when I was there, the doctors there didn't really have an idea. So the instant assessment of my eyes when they were actually in that state of blindness, basically, didn't happen. But I was able to get in touch with quite a few eye specialists and kind of describe to them the symptoms and what it looked like. No one had any pictures of my eyes really up close, but what people described it as. And from talking to them in the aftermath, it was best guess a corneal edema, which is like, because I wear contact lenses and the dust and particles in the air and the fact that my nutrition, like I had stopped really taking in those simple sugars and even more complex stuff. It was mostly just water by the end there, caused like a swelling in my eye. And it's apparently more common than I knew of in ultras. Like plenty of runners reached out and said I had that same sort of thing, or I had the beginnings of it, because it definitely like blurs in from the sides. So you can tell when it's coming.
So is there any part of you that worries it might happen again, or is it something they said, the people you spoke to said that if you kind of keep on top of your nutrition, you should be able to keep it away?
Oh man, I would hate for it to happen again. I was definitely not preferring that style of running, but I was advised, to stay on top of nutrition like you always should, and then to wear protective eyewear and use re-wetting eye drops for my contacts, just to like keep the eyes more clear of debris and the
So would that
dust
have happened if you had contacts? Was the contacts a part of it?
Apparently, it's more likely with contacts, or even if you've had eye surgery, so like LASIK or something. Yeah.
Okay. And then one more question about this. What did the people in the hospital think of you? The fact that you ran 12 miles? I would just love to hear, like, people who weren't runners. What did they think?
I think that mostly they were probably like, man, this chick stinks.
I guess, after 100 miles, you may have had a slight smell about you. But
yeah, get her out of her hospital bed.
They definitely wash the sheets after you were in there. Even if they don't every time otherwise.
Yes.
Okay, so let's kind of transition to talking about something else. You know, you I've always said that you are just yourself. You run in these baggy 12-inch shorts, men's cut t-shirt. Firstly, how does that not chafe? I feel like that's the first thing that comes to my mind, that it would just chafe in strange places. But doesn't chafe you in ultra races, not wearing, these typical dry fit compression gear, or specifically made for, runners? Yeah, no, I like it. It feels comfortable. And I think that's the most important part. And then there's just good airflow. They feel really nice. Yeah, no chafing. And when did you get into wearing those? Was it a case that you have run in them most of your life? Or is it, one day you forgot your stuff and it just, you thought, oh, I'll try these. But how did that kind of come about, that you were kind of going against, I guess, the typical runner style, and picking these baggy kind of men's clothing as a woman? For sure. Since I was young, I never preferred the running shorts we had to wear for cross country, and always had my warm-ups on over them, or basketball shorts on over them, right until we lined up on the start line. So it's just been a preference of mine since I was little. Yeah, well, I guess if it works, and why would you ever change it? So keep it up. Okay, so I want to just discuss the 1 minute that you laid down. I haven't noted down for myself which race this was. I'm not sure. Was this the... That was Moab. Moab, okay. The Moab 240, yeah. Okay, it was. So you were on the course for 57 hours, laying down for 20 minutes at mile 190, which I think is reasonable for us to kind of understand. But then you laid down for 1 minute at your another stop. But you said your brain... Oh, no, sorry. Was it 20 minutes where your brain wouldn't shut off? Yeah, 20 minutes was lousy. I didn't actually fall asleep ever. Which kind of debunks that whole theory of if you'll sleep if you're tired, which you were obviously tired at mile 190. So, I just wanted to mention that. But then, there's another point in the trail where you laid down for 1 minute. And your pacer kind of was there, to make sure you didn't sleep for too long. But you said, the deepest sleep you've ever had, you thought you felt fully alert and rejuvenated. So explain that to us. And, does that even kind of shock you, hearing that? Like, that you could sleep for 1 minute and feel rejuvenated? Oh, yeah. It was the coolest thing. I mean, that moment, waking up from it and feeling so rejuvenated after. My pacer and I, he's my good friend, we were just hooping and hollering down the trail after it, when previously I had been like zombie running. I had been falling asleep as I was running and zigzagging all over. So it was a really cool moment, and it's still one of my favorite running memories, just to have that happen during such a cool race with my buddy out there. And what did he say to you like it did? when you said, how long have I slept? Like, what was his response?
1 minute. He's like, I'm not letting you sleep longer. Of course it's been 1 minute. I was like, dude, did you let me sleep for 30 minutes? Has it been an hour? What did you do? He's like, no, of course that was 1 minute. Now let's go.
Was there any part of him that was like, do you think we should stay a little bit longer? Or was he just like, okay, let's go then?
Yeah, no, he was amped on it. And it was cold still. It was like we were just a few hours before sunrise, I think. So it was that like dawn chill. And so neither of us should have been staying still for very long. And that was one of the things when I was going out, it was like, all right, if it's 1 minute, like otherwise we're going to get cold and waste time out here. So let's go.
Crazy. That's just one of the most insane things I've ever heard. And just, you know, I can't even think about what your body was doing during that 1 minute.
Oh my gosh.
And maybe it was just the mental reset or who knows. But either way, it worked for you and just a cool story to hear. Another thing that kind of happens to you often in these long races, especially like that, is, you know, hallucinating. You know, you said about everything having a face or a person playing a cello, things like that. And the one that I remember you saying was about a leopard in a hammock. You saw a leopard in a hammock, which is just... So maybe explain to us, like, for those of us who haven't hallucinated, you know, how does it feel? And when you're in that situation, does it feel like it's real? Do you know that that's not actually happening? Or, you know, at that point, are you so kind of out of it that you think, oh, maybe that leopard is in a hammock? Yeah.
Have you ever hallucinated like that during a run?
No.
Yeah. It's always during the night for me, and during the night when it's later into the race. So when my brain has gotten tired and the night has funny shadows already and these trails, you know, wind through forests. And so things just turn into other things. And the first times it happened to me, I was pretty freaked out. Like, I think one of the first ones was flying eels or pterodactyls or something. And I was like ducking and covering as I was running because I thought they were... So it
genuinely felt real, like something out of like the Hunger Games.
Yes. Yeah. And there were giraffes. And I was like, what the heck? Why are there giraffes in the Colorado mountains? You know, like really freaked out by it. But now that it's happened a couple times in multiple races, now it's been fun to like acknowledge that that's what came to me tonight, you know, and like, that's what I saw. And I've got a couple friends who it's after making sure I'm okay at the finish line, that's their first question. It's like,
what did you see?
What did you see out there?
And do you kind of laugh to yourself, like maybe a few hours later that you're like, you know, I thought I saw like a pterodactyl flying at me, kind of like chuckle to yourself?
Yeah. Now I do. And it definitely, like, in the moment, I'm not laughing because I'm so tired usually that it's just like, leopard in a hammock? Like, really? But then, you know, hours later, I might be like, you know what I saw out there?
And people are like, no, you definitely didn't see that.
Yeah.
Oh, it happened again. Well, either way, it makes for a cool story. And, you know, the final thing I want to ask you about, you know, obviously it's very clear by now, but as if it wasn't, you are known for being very mentally tough. You know, I would love for you to kind of give listeners some advice on how you've kind of gotten to this way. You know, you've been known to say that you refuse to give physical pain any value, like shoving it aside and focusing on other things. Like, what would be your advice for those who do struggle to kind of push through pain and feel like they are mentally weak and they want to work on that?
Yeah, I think when it becomes that point where it's physically really, really difficult to just know, like, acknowledge that it's happening. You don't have to like pretend it feels good at that moment, you know, but then to also acknowledge that if you just keep going, you're going to find the other side of that dark spot. It always happens, knock on wood. And it just might take a little bit longer sometimes than others, but we all have that next year, that next like reservoir of energy and of spirit. And if we just give ourselves the credit to push through the dark spots, we'll find it, I think. And for me, that mental piece is really important, and pushing through those dark moments is huge. And I still have the dark moments, it's not all sunshine and rainbows and runner's high and like feeling like I'm flying every mile. The dark moments come, the like gray moments come, all the whole spectrum of feelings during these runs. And it's just riding the highs. And when I feel good, to like really enjoy those moments. And then when the lows hit, to know that a high is going to come again.
Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast and for supporting me and the work we are doing at Running for Real. Tracksmith is an independent running brand inspired by a deep love of the sport. Recently, as the weather has warmed and training is underway, I have enjoyed, as I always do, Tracksmith's Session Speed Shorts from their spring collection. Now, while I have not got the new colors, because at the end of the day, environmentally, the best items to have are the one you already own, they do have some beautiful new colors out in their spring collection, and they feature this exposed elastic waistband and a lightweight liner, so they feel as light as air and barely there. From the first time I have worn them in 2019, they look exactly the same. They work exactly the same. These are durable and long-lasting and beautiful shorts. For first-time purchasers, you can use code TINA-NEW, that's Tina New, N-E-W, for $15 off your order of $75 or more. For returning customers, you can use code TINA-GIVE, which is going to give you free shipping and a donation to support Track Girls. Track Girls is empowering girls physically, mentally, and socially through track and field empowerment workshops and grants. It is founded by Olympian Michelle Lewis Freeman and just doing some wonderful work there. So be sure to go check that out. I also just quickly want to remind you that Boston and London, there will be events at Tracksmith. I will be at both locations for their events. So be sure to go check out the links in the show notes or at tracksmith.com to go see what events they are doing. The Boston Marathon weekend, at the London Marathon, they will have some fun shakeouts, some other fun events. Be sure to go check that out. And I would love to see you there if you're going to be there. Be sure to go to tracksmith.com/Tina to find out more about my favorite items. So be sure to use those codes and go get yourself some of those session shorts. So what would you be saying to yourself? Do you say like, just get to that next tree? Or is it, you say, another high is coming, just get through this tough patch? Like what is the voice in your head saying in those moments?
Yeah. Sometimes it's just repeating over and over, like, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, reminding myself that physical pain is okay. Sometimes it is like a game of get to this tree and then run. I've actually like shouted at myself on the trail, like, now you go. And then it forces myself to start running again if I've been walking for a while. Or sometimes it's like just trying to escape the moment and eat some food or listen to some music if that's an option, and take yourself out of it, mm-hmm. where you're not focused so much on the pain for that moment.
Mm-hmm. And what about like how do you stop yourself from kind of, let's say you did walk a bit longer than you should have, or you really kind of lost your focus for a few miles? How do you not kind of be like, I just like lost all that time and, I'm never going to catch that back up? Like, especially if you were going for a record, like what do you say to yourself to not beat yourself up, after you have made maybe a mistake or slowed down or something like that?
Yeah, it happens, during 24-hour races, it's like really evident when those moments happen. And when you have a set amount of time like that, it can feel really stressful to be like, I just had 3 hours where I was, way off track from what I hoped to do. Mm-hmm. But I've been learning and just kind of watching and trying to pick up pointers from all the amazing runners in this sport that 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it doesn't change it. Or like if your stomach turns on you, you can come back from that. So just always holding on to that thought and that focus of, you can come back from this. You're fine. You can turn this around, and not then dwelling on the fact that you wasted 3 hours or you've been throwing everything up that you've been eating, like just moving on from it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And I think, even though what Courtney is saying about is, maybe for most of us kind of, it's a long way off what we're going to be running distance wise, but you can take the same kind of thing of like relative time. Like Courtney said, 3 hours she might have wasted. Well, maybe you've wasted the last 3 miles and you really struggled. But like Courtney said, you can still turn it back around and it's not too late. So, keep that in mind within terms of your own body and your own mind, what races you are doing and what distances you are doing. The words still apply, basically. So, okay, Courtney, 4 more questions just to finish up this interview for you. Courtney is currently laughing at me right now. I'm not sure why that'd be. But I just wanted to first ask you about a nutrition tip, something that you do or you use other than having a nice cold beer at the end of a race, during your training, during your racing.
Yeah, one of the tickets for my longer races lately has been mashed potatoes, which doesn't instantly sound that great.
You eat them during, like...
Yeah.
Are they
shoveling
cold?
in mashed potatoes. Temperature doesn't bother me. So sometimes during the night, a hot cup of mashed potatoes is a real treat.
And can you request that? Like, can you say I want them hot or I want them cold, or how does that work with the aid stations?
No, usually it's just, I don't care. So it's whatever they've got.
Okay.
Or if they've been sitting there for a while, maybe they're not quite steaming, but load them up with some salt and maybe a little butter.
And they know ahead of time that's what you want, like, to prepare it for you?
A lot of times aid stations will have some sort of potato there. Sometimes it's like cubes of potatoes.
Okay.
Sometimes it's mashed potatoes, but in these ultras, you also can have crew. And so my husband will have just a stock of mashed potatoes ready to go. So when I roll in, I can just shovel some in as quickly as possible and get moving again.
Okay, so mashed potatoes has become your food of choice in these moments. And I guess I don't see why not. It's a good source of carbs that will keep you going and they're not going to upset your stomach. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, and it goes in easy. Yeah. It can carry some salt and trick you.
Yeah, I definitely could see that working. So thank you for sharing that. What about a running for real moment, a moment that only runners will understand?
There's so many, there's so many ups and downs in this journey. When I first started ultra running, I wasn't very good at it. 5 years ago, I dropped out of my first 100-mile attempt when it felt hard. I had made it to 60.
Okay.
So 60% of the race, which if we bring that down to a lot of different levels, that's not making it. That's not going the distance, even though 60 miles feels like a long ways as it is. But it just felt hard. Like it felt hard physically. And so then mentally I got down on myself and threw in the towel, like didn't give myself enough credit and stopped believing in myself. And since then it's just been a journey of I want to figure this out. So I'm going to, and that 100-mile distance isn't going to defeat me.
Great. And I think people can really resonate with you saying that, because it's very easy to think that, you've always been good at this, you're just natural, and that, you've just been tough your whole life. And essentially you have been tough your whole life, but you yourself struggled at the beginning. And most of us have had a DNF at some time. So, good for people to hear that you can, find some level of peace. I mean, I can tell by the way you're talking about it that still does bother you a little bit. But, just to say that you're human and things go wrong for you too, and especially in the early days. So give yourself some grace. What about a high moment for you in your running?
Yeah, I think I would circle it back to that after the 1-minute nap. Just that feeling of awe of what our bodies and our brains are capable of, and to be sharing that journey and that moment with a friend and to have sunrise around the corner. It was it's one of my favorite running memories that I have.
That's great.
I mean, there were elk bugling up on the hill. There were stars. It was couldn't have been more perfect.
Yeah, that sounds like it. That is truly one of the runner moments we hope to imagine. And like you said, having a friend there is even better about it. And finally, what do you tell yourself when you're standing on the start line of a race?
To remember to soak it in, to remember to to remember how lucky I am to be able to do something I love. Oftentimes I'm doing that thing I love for an entire day, like what things can you do that you love doing for 24 hours straight or 58 hours straight? That's pretty cool. So to like just go into the race and stand at that start line with that thought makes me feel like really excited for the journey ahead, the adventure that's undoubtedly going to happen out there.
I love that. That is a really great perspective and just such a good thing to tell yourself, and something everyone listening can apply to their own racing and running as well. So thank you so much. Finally, I do ask my guests to send me a photo of them in a power pose, something you would do maybe at the start of a race, or just something you would do to build your confidence that you can do this. Will you send us a photo of you in a power pose?
Oh, geez.
You can do you standing on the top of a mountain or something, whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. Courtney, where can people find out more about you if they want to follow you in the future?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's at Courtney Dauwalter. On the Twitter machine is at Court Dauwalter. And then I have a Facebook page, Courtney Dauwalter.
Okay, I will put links in the show notes, and I'll also put a link to a YouTube video that there is on you, which Pete Davey, who's the one who suggested you to come on the show, he sent it to me, and really, really inspiring video to watch. So I'll put a link to that, and I suggest everyone listening go watch that as well.
Thank you.
If you want to learn more about Courtney's journey. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been so interesting to learn from you, and just we're in awe of you and just all that you've been able to do, and you definitely inspire us all to really see where our boundaries lie. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing with us today.
Thank you.
The Running for Real podcast and everything we do here at Running for Real would not be possible if it wasn't for the Running for Real team. While I am the person who you hear from most often and maybe the face of the brand, the rest of our team are such critical pieces of what we do, and without them, I think I'd just be running around in circles with ideas. So I want to take a moment to thank our team. To Jeremy Nessel, who's been with me since the very beginning, Kat McKay, Sally Pontarelli, Kelsey Wang, Sandy Gutierrez, Louise Murphy, Andrew Basola, Alexandria Will, and Maria Vargas. Thank you to each and every one of you for all that you give to Running for Real and our community. I appreciate you, and I'm so thankful for having you as a part of the team. Thank you so much for listening to that episode. And I was wrong on the intro. It was actually 5 years ago that episode aired. So I'm hoping my skills have come along a little bit since then, but still such a relevant episode. So many golden nuggets in there about just how to get the most out of yourself that we can learn from and listen to. And I hope you enjoyed that episode with Courtney as much as I did. I want to take a moment to remind you to go check out links in the show notes. You can go to runningforreal.com/episode 351. And there you can find links to our sponsors like Athletic Greens, where you can get that 1 year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2 plus 5 free travel packs. And more importantly, you will get the 1 scoop once a day and get 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients. It is amazing. It is the only ritual I keep. Go to athleticgreens.com/Tina. I also want to remind you to go check out Tracksmith. If you use code TINAGIVE, you can make a donation to Track Girls with your order. Or if you use code TINANEW, you can get $15 off your order of $75 or more. And you can get that by going to tracksmith.com/Tina. There's information about all this in the show notes. And finally, have you pre-ordered a copy of Becoming a Sustainable Runner, which I co-authored with Zoe Rome? Comes out August 18th, and we would love to have as many of you as possible pre-ordering. That really, really helps us out so much. So you can go to becomingasustablerunner.com, or again, look at the show notes for all of these things, including where Courtney is and the updated episode, the catch up we had with Courtney last year, by going to runningforreal.com/episode 351. On Monday, we will have a together run for you. On Wednesday, another For Real episode, and then I will update you on how this race went. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.